All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 North American College Championship. Happy to have you with us. We're coming at you live from Seattle, Washington. It is Friday morning at about 9:07. Sorry, we're a little late. A few early morning kinks to work out, but we are ready to go. I am Evans Clinchy. Happy to have you with us. I'm going to be doing a lot of the games this weekend, and we're going to have a rotating cast of all-star special guests joining us throughout the weekend to give some color commentary. And first up in that department is Will Anderson. Will, how you doing?
I'm great, Evan. 7 minutes is hardly a delay, as these things tend to have all manner of snafus pop up. So kudos to you and everybody else on site. That's nothing to wait. Hopefully everybody on Twitch is excited to feast on some amazing play this weekend, because there really is nowhere to hide in the top division.
Yeah, it's a pretty stacked field. We're going to have, former national champions and world champions and top experts just pretty much throughout the weekend coming through table one here. It's going to be quite the all-star lineup. Yeah, it's a pretty stacked field for sure. And as you can see on your screen right now, first up is going to be David Whitley versus John O'Loughlin.
Yeah, it says a lot that that's the first game of the day here. Two seasoned top players, right? Normally, in a field that's got a little more stratification of ability in it, you might not see two really strong experts like this facing off in round one, but we're jumping right into the deep end here with two extremely good players.
Yeah, there pretty much is no shallow end, so what else are you going to do, right? Yeah, this is quite the matchup. And we're going to have a lot of matchups like this throughout the weekend, so get used to it. We're here for a total of 30 rounds this weekend, starting now on Friday morning, going through Monday. Just to give people a quick refresher on the format for the event, it is a 20-game preliminary round, followed by a 4-player Final Four bracket playoff on Monday. So the top 4 finishers after 24 will play in a best of 3 semifinal Monday morning and a best of 3 final on Monday afternoon after lunch. So first 24 rounds will decide which 4 players advance to the playoffs, and this is round 1 of the 24 getting started just now.
That's quite the gauntlet to run over the course of so many games, so many days. You never know how stamina plays a role there. Playing that much Scrabble over a long period of time, it's tough to play your A game. So hopefully the players start out on the right foot and then remain there for such a long, grueling event. Looks like David going first.
Yeah, David first, and it looks like he's got DERYZ and some other stuff. Another E. Ooh, and a blank. All right.
A lot of goodies there for him.
Fun rack right off the bat for David, most definitely.
Let's see what John's got.
Jumps out at me right away is something like yes.
3 T's. We'll see if we have a stream-friendly word get played by John. But yeah, yes. Not sure what else. What else you'd be looking at with that blank. You're thrilled to see the blank, thrilled to see the Z. Oddly, seeing them together is not quite as good as seeing them separate, one at a time. The Z, we love it. Scores 10, pretty easy to use, certainly compared to the Q. With the blank, though, it's not so good for playing bingos, and there's yes quickly for David.
Yeah, not a lot to think about there. Pretty straightforward play, and David just plunks it down within a few seconds. All right, so a nice little 45-0 lead for David right off the bat, and
not
John.
quite that high, right?
Oh my gosh, I have the wrong. Hold on 1 second. Thank you for catching that.
Do you get the did you get the triple word score in the center instead of
I literally did that, yes. I should have noticed that my Quackle has a purple square, not a pink one. If only the creator of Quackle were around to help me. Oh, wait, he's on table 1.
He is playing. Yeah, I was going to say, great segue into the fact that our cutting-edge Scrabble AI tool developed by John O'Loughlin, and he indulges us here by playing this word. Depending on where you're from in the world, it's either incredibly offensive or just on par with calling somebody a stinker. But yeah, it seems all right. I guess the only other play maybe that John could have made, he left 2 of his 3 T's on his rack there. So maybe Cutty to the Y of Yez would have gotten 2 of the 3 off at I don't know if it's really that dangerous, but it would have created a nice big spot for an H to go down alongside the C, if you can imagine it. But there we are. That's Scrabble, folks. Sometimes you get silly words. Looks like you fixed the score very fast, Evans.
Yeah, well, I just had to change that purple score to a pink one and then start the game over again, and we're all good.
And we're
glad we caught that early.
We're not far along. So there you go. Nice.
I'm dealing with quite a few technical difficulties this morning and just trying to keep up. But I think we're going to be okay. All right, so a strong rack 4 is double through that C. Gonna quickly put down.
Yeah, looks pretty good to me. It seems unlikely that there's anything better than that. Of course, looking around on the board, if you could imagine, if you're in David's shoes, where would I like to play? If I could have any play I want, playing through that C would be the spot. So as soon as he sees something, it's a pretty good chance that that's either the best play or tied for the best play. So as it turns out, there is no other word through that C. So nicely done, David.
And it looks like, if I'm seeing John's rack correctly, he does have a bingo, and he is finding it rather quickly. So a nice start for both players, as John is going to get down fistiest through that I in recoding.
That's right. That's a tricky one, just because it feels like there are such nice bingo tiles there, but there's duplicated S's and T's, and I would be looking at least a little bit through all the other letters open on the board, the R and N and G of recoding, but he has very confidently ascertained that's his only bingo and played it. So nicely done.
Yeah, very nice play by John, and pretty quick too. All right, so 124 to 79 is the correct score, and David's got a little bit of a kind of one tempo ahead sort of lead here. Certainly not safe by any means, but a good start for him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of slowed down the drawing a little bit here with this somewhat clunky 4-vowel rack. Doesn't have the I that he needs for autopsia, I think is a word.
That's true. He did draw the P for pre-coding, so I'm very curious to see if he spots that. That might help pump his score up a little bit, or if he can find something useful that does not use that hook, maybe he will elect to do so and keep it, just because if you draw something better with the P, you might be happy you saved it. If you can score something similar to, I guess you would play UPA and pre-coding on top there. Scores 26. So if you can get something similar to that and keep your P for next turn, maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, so you're right on the money. I was looking at a Quackle candidate moves list here, and the other play besides UPA to consider is something like FOUAT, F-O-U-A-T, from the F and Fistiest. So that would score 24, and like you were saying, keep the P and a nice strong leave of APS. I think those are probably the two best options, either UPA or FOUAT.
Oh, very interesting suggestion by Scrabble on Twitch, or as we call him, 5 Crab, to differentiate him from other Scrabble entities, suggesting apostate to the TE on the board.
Ooh.
It's intriguing. And okay, this looks like a miss of the pre-coding hook to me here.
Yeah, most likely that's what it is. Not a huge mistake in terms of the equity. I mean, he's only going to score a few points less, but 17 instead of 26 is quite a few.
Yeah, it's like a medium size mistake. I think the biggest thing this says to me is, and this isn't likely to matter very much, but if I'm John and I'm sitting there and I see that, I might think to myself, wow, he definitely didn't think of the pre-coding hook. So if I'm able to draw a P, I'm going to put this play of UPA in my memory banks, and I'm going to try to remember David's not thinking about that hook, maybe I can use that somehow to my advantage. Again, not very likely that that's going to come up, but that's what I'd be thinking if I'm John and I notice that.
Yeah, I think John thinks the same way. He's definitely the type to notice that sort of situation. And there is one more P in the bag that he might draw at some point, so we'll see.
He has those 3 eyes, not what he's wanting to see.
And meanwhile, David's drawn the second blank.
True. So John exchanges. Seems reasonable to me. There were some plays I guess he could have put on the board there, but nothing that feels so obviously better than exchanging that I really quibble with that choice.
You could play Etiolin for 14, opening a triple. Seems like not a great option.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that might be okay to do. I just think on this particular board, opening a triple where one doesn't currently exist is really making by far the best scoring spot for David to use. There really isn't a lot going on as far as scoring. So you got to be, it's not that easy to use the O of recoding to hit the triple, for example. So definitely agree that Etiolin playing so open is not as good as exchanging for John as Jaw comes down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jaw keeping NST blank. Can't complain about that one.
Any merit to playing that with Ya on top of Upa for a couple more points? Is there, I mean, you're setting up your S a little bit more aggressively and you're scoring 2 more points at a cost of you're opening the board when you have a lead, which doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, it's not a super scary opening. I don't think there's terribly much difference between the 2 plays. And like you said, it is 2 extra points. I might have chosen the one on the right there. Yeah.
But very close.
Yeah.
That is much more of a hair splitter.
Mm-hmm.
Mitsurugi asks, would I be able to keep and share the Quackle files from the tournament? Actually, I am not in charge of the Quackle. That would be an Evans question, but I'm sure
Yeah,
that he will
I got you. Yeah, we'll absolutely be sharing them. Assuming I can get my laptop working, which is a big if at the moment. My plan is to write recap blogs at the end of each day where I post kind of an update on how the games went today, and then I'll have GCGs of all 7 games that we streamed on table 1. Currently dealing with some technical difficulties, but hopefully I can get those resolved. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's
definitely check back to cocoscrabble.org, and you'll find a lot of live coverage of the event throughout the weekend, including some recap blogs from each day.
It's very impressive that you find energy to do that, even more so than time.
Well, I'm lucky to have a very strong director team. We've got my wife Jennifer, obviously, and then Conrad Bassett-Bouchard as well, directing the tournament in the playing room. So that takes a whole lot of burden off of me. I don't have to do much.
Do we see them in far in the background of David's camera shot there?
I think we do. I think behind David, I think that's Travis Chaney in the red shirt playing his game, and then I think behind Travis, I think we see Jennifer and Conrad in like
hard at
very
work,
small dots in the background there. All right, so we see Bilbo keeping EHN from John there. Nice play.
And perhaps for those watching that are curious and saying, "Hey, I didn't know that they allow proper nouns in this game. Bilbo, isn't that the Hobbit?" Yes, it is, but it's also a word for a rapier, a fencing item, not just the Hobbit. Means. Yes. Maybe that was Tolkien's inspiration for calling that character Bilbo. But anyway, that was a great play by John, just to make that clear. That was his only way of hitting that O of recoding, playing into the triple, definitely his highest scoring play. And David has 6 consonants along with that blank, and it looks like he draws 2 more. So not great in his quest to get a bingo down, but John's also drawn the Q, which is going to be annoying.
Yeah, it looks like Vax was really the only option for David there. There was just nothing else you could do with that rack, and he plays it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So
had David drawn a vowel or two, he's almost a lock to bingo with DNST blank. Just two vowels, and you're bingoing every time, pretty much, I would
even
assume.
one vowel and you're in pretty decent shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get an E, but no.
So that's good news for John, who is, already trailing. And it's hard to see how he is going to use this cue here.
Yikes.
Chi with just the eye of Bilbo is very uninspiring. And I think he's probably getting ready to play Heedy, which would play underneath Vistiest. That's probably his best bet. Maybe he draws a U or some other help for the Q. This seems fine to me, Evans.
Yeah, he could play either Heedy or Hade. I mean, obviously they're very similar plays. Um, he could play Hedgie for fewer points through the G and recoding. I mean, there's not really much you can do. Um, I don't think that just playing the Q for 11 is very worthwhile. Something like Heedy seems like a good idea, and sure enough, it comes down.
Yeah, there's a lot of upside for the Q if you're able to pick not even the U, but you can see he's drawn AT, right? So he's going to be able to do something a little bit better next turn with the Q because he was patient. Or actually, the rest of his letters are so good, maybe he'll once again try to score well and keep it for the next turn a second time, just because he's drawn that very nice WH combination. So not sure what he'll opt to do, but by bypassing playing just Chi for 11, he set himself up a little better.
So an interesting spot for David here. Obviously, he's drawn pretty poorly with that blank, but he can use the consonants to kind of muck up the board. I mean, he's up by, 39. I would consider something like Vint here through that I and Bilbo just to block stuff. If you were down by 39, it'd be a different story. But with the lead, I think David can kind of play a more muck things up sort of style.
Yeah, that looks good instinctively. I'm just imagining, is there any other? I don't think it's normally you would consider playing Vim. Oh, it looks like he's going to exchange instead of play Vint. So that's maybe a little surprising just because 9 points is nice to bank while also blocking the board a little bit. I know NST blank is better than DMS blank, which he would have after Vint, but I think the 9 points the 9 points and the board control cover that gap a little. But David's going to bingo next turn for sure now.
I also just kind of like leaves like DMS blank. They're fun because you can either draw a bingo or score a little bit if you don't get a bingo. They're just kind of more flexible in that way. Not that it's better than NST blank, but it's interesting.
The bingos that you eventually get have a higher chance of being crazy, interesting words, which if you're looking to flex on your opponent, that's, you always got to be thinking about that.
Yeah, you got to create content for us too. That's what's most important.
That's true. That's what these players should be thinking about without question. How can I create the best possible content? Hey, Gertchie out there on Twitch. Nice to see you. Hopefully, we're going to get some more folks piling in on Twitch watching this great Scrabble play. And it looks like John is considering playing Cats underneath Heedy.
Yeah,
Makes
holding
sense
on to
to
that
me.
Q has paid off. He's finally got a way to score some points with it. Yeah, so Cats would be, I think it's 39. Yep, 39 points underneath Heedy, forming Shah and Tet and ES. He could also play Thaw, THAW, in the same spot for more points if he wants to hold the Q even longer. But
yeah,
something tells me he's just glaring at this Q saying, I'm done with you. Get off my rack. That's how I would feel at this point anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. The idea of playing all of your nice non-Q scoring tiles under there. I think it's very tempting to play Thaw under there. You would keep your S, but you also keep the Q to go with it. So there's one good thing and one bad thing if you play Thaw under there, which for the record, you would be making SHH, not the
Oh, wow,
easiest
yeah.
to see. But I think in general, the downside risk for a player of John's caliber, of keeping the cue is just larger. You can keep it, and maybe the odds are decent that you'll draw you and get some good stuff to go with it. But if you don't, you'll continue to slog. Um, so let's see what David's getting ready to play. Oh, he's making that blank a Z, I think.
Ooh.
Flashy. So Zinc 8's hitting the C in the good spot. Nice play.
Breaking our tie, 187 to 187. Our score was, wow, a very, I'm not going to make any comments. It was a weird score.
So that's some kind of Scrabble scoregami or something like that. Probably
well, isn't
not.
187 the code for homicide? I was going to make a double murder pun or something, but that's inappropriate. So just forget I said that.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, oh, he's really killing it with that score, but it doesn't work. Forget it.
I was not familiar with that. Hello to Kitsune King on Twitch. I don't know the codes for different police bulletins, but in either case, it's definitely frustrating in John's shoes because he just got the score to tied after trailing the entire game, and then David immediately bingos to renew the chase for John, as he's been in arrears basically the entire game. But he's got really good tiles. He has to be able to come up with something that gives him some points and maybe a decent leave and some hope for himself here.
There's lots of plays that overlap the freshly played Zincates there. Lots of ways to play it. Things like how or who for 35-ish. How with the H overlapping the A and Zincates, forming and 2 and U is 35.
Yeah, there's all kinds of overlaps in that area. I was just wondering if there was any merit if he's really wanting to be aggressive. It looks like he is setting up a much more aggressive option. It would leave the W, which isn't great, but he's considering playing himmed through the Y of Heedy. And the reason he would do that at a deficit is just to really fling open multiple areas of the board. So if you imagine him play through that Y of Heedy, it would set up the triple lane going up the board, and then also the bottom row of the board as well would be pretty open. So there are advantages to that play at a deficit, but you are really hoping to catch David with kind of crummy tiles that he can't do much with. And that's not really what he has. He's going to be able to score quite well in one of the two spots. So if John plays himmed, he will very much be reliant on an excellent draw, probably a bingo. And we'll see if he gets it. Here he goes. So this play does make sense to me from a board development standpoint. You can see how now it's just there's not much going on, or rather how there is way too much going on. But David's going to play planked or something and hit John really hard after this play.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm guessing he's going to see it relatively quickly. Maybe not. You see this tile shuffling there. Okay, so John needed that good draw, and Evans, I don't think he's gotten it.
No, I don't think so. So I'm dealing with a little bit of a technical difficulty on my end, but I'm going to try to fix it while we go here.
Sure, I'm happy to.
If you could just vamp for me,
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I love talking, as most know. So yeah,
I'll try joining the conversation when I can.
No worries. So John definitely not getting the draw he hoped for. With a play like him, you really are taking one crack at something really nice that ideally would play in two spots. And instead he's looking at, you can see him kind of clench his jaw there in frustration a little bit. But David's either going to play planked, or if he doesn't see that somehow, he could play knee pad, but that would set up an S hook, but it doesn't look like there's any S's left. All 4 S's and both blanks are on the board. So if he wanted to, he could play knee pad to that D of him with impunity. But planked would be a bunch more points and you keep an E as opposed to an L. So probably a little bit better. He's doing fine on the clock. No issues there for either player, really. And yeah, I think he's just. I think if you had, all right, you see the K in the good spot. Oh, okay. He hasn't seen planked. He's just going to play Cade instead. So that's a 15-point drop in score. And the leave is a little bit clunky. So I think I'm preferring planked for a couple of reasons. One, a bunch of extra points. Two, gets in the way of the S of Zinc 8s. Much more difficult to play a bingo starting with that S. But either way, I was going to say that if you're going to pick one of the 2 spots in David's shoes, you would pick that D of himmed just because the downside risk of it is much greater. You don't want John to play a triple through that D. And David has drawn Praline.
Ooh.
Praline hooking HE to make he alongside himmed. If John doesn't play Owie or Iwi there, I guess he could play Iwi. Looks like he's considering it, but he might not even play that. Okay, he is going to play it there. I was thinking maybe he'll play it with Chi just to leave that spot open. But instead, he's decided to play it in the normal spot, leaving EIOU. Old McDonald would be thrilled. I guess Iwi also would have played alongside Zinc 8s, which looks normally like a nice aggressive play, but again, there's no S's left, so there's really no point in doing that. It actually just blocks and doesn't create an S hook that can actually be used. So did that play of John actually block? Yeah, I guess it did. I think David was probably thrilled to have a chance at playing Praline and land the finishing blow in this game. But he's going to have to come up with something different. Good context by Scrabble in the chat. His word, speaking about David, says his word knowledge is very good, but often has trouble with board vision. Yeah, I mean, in general, I agree that for anybody, it's hard to have perfect board vision at all times. But I would agree in general that David's word knowledge is really, really, really strong. Rare to see him make too many mistakes in that area. But in Scrabble, there are just so many ways to make mistakes that it's very difficult to have every element of your game on absolute point at all times. So, do you want me to give some score updates, Evans?
Yeah. So, do you have like the game on your? Are you quackling it as well? Basically,
I do. Yeah, I'm caught up.
Okay.
I wasn't, but I am now.
That would be great. I'm just now fixing a bunch of quackle issues, but I think I'm a couple moves behind. So if you could do the update, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll just put in the chat.
So I think I'm missing on my end everything that happened after himmed. How much did I miss?
Okay. So the plays that happened after that were Cade for David for 42.
Wait, so what was David's rack?
He left. He played KAE and he left PLEN.
Oh, right.
Okay. So he had planked with another plank with, instead of a D, another E.
All right. So he plays Cade keeping plan. Got you.
Yep. Then John played Iwi leaving Uoi. Beautiful. Looks like David has Alarone set up to play to the E of himmed, making OK, which would be a knockout blow in this game. But if you're wanting David's previous play of Peril, he played Peril leaving AN.
So Praline. Okay, I got you.
Yep. And then it's over to John, who is probably grudgingly about to play our favorite cry of Bacchic frenzy. The 4 vowels, uoi, going underneath the Q of cats. That's a very, very helpful word. If you are playing Collins Scrabble, that's going to be one of the most important for obvious reasons. You get a lot of racks in Scrabble that have too many vowels, and that is a 4-letter word consisting of all vowels. Hard to imagine a more useful word. And I thank everybody throughout history who has been gripped with Bacchic frenzy to make this a word.
So I think we have the correct score on the screen now at 344 to 256.
I agree.
All right, excellent. And John has taken his time considering that Bacchic frenzy. Okay, I think my difficulties are fixed. Thanks for bearing with me there. All right, looks like exchange 5 is a pretty reasonable option there for Mr. O'Loughlin.
Yep. And is David going to see? And sure enough, he instantly has seen that the E slightly obstructed of him, nevertheless, fits this bingo. And that is very unlikely to give John any remaining winning chances here.
Oof, yeah, sunsetting on this one. Still 20 tiles in the bag, but big deficit to make up. He's going to need to bingo probably 3 times.
Not that it would have mattered. I think I probably would have played Uoi, which looks like it would have blocked this just because in John's shoes, you are trailing by enough points that you want your eventual bingo to actually make a difference. So I would really hate to take an exchange, especially while I have a almost 20-point play on offer that doesn't use my lone consonant. Again, though, not much hope for him in this game. So ooh, Eggier. True. Does Eggier actually, yeah, it's gonna fit in there. Be very nice.
Why am I not seeing where Eggier play? Oh, there we go. Overlapping.
It's tricky.
The 4 overlaps. Yes. Oh, he's gonna find it.
Very nice. All right, Twitch fans. I don't really remember how the love of the word egg was spawned on Twitch, Scrabble, in the Scrabble community on Twitch, but this. If only there were hundreds more of you. Of course, it's just game 1. I'm sure the audience will increase over time to rejoice at seeing egg be played in its comparative form. Well, eggy, I should say. But nice play by John. Definitely correct in a losing effort to grab a bunch of points. Evans, you should explain a little bit about the importance of spread.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a rather competitive field at the top, and so every spread point matters. I mean, given the format of this tournament, with only 24 games in the preliminary rounds before the final 4, I think it's pretty likely we're going to have a bunch of people, tied at records like 16-8, 15-9, and so on. And so spread is very likely to be a difference maker for somebody getting into the playoffs and somebody not. Yeah, we'll have to see. Looks like David is going to go with Rev, keeping ILNO. All right.
Looks fine.
Seems reasonable enough.
If he wanted to get really flashy, there was one flashy play available to him, which I'm not even sure is necessarily a correct choice. But he could extend Ute in the center of the board to involute. Mostly style points on offer there. I don't think what David's done is any worse.
Yeah, I think all he wants to do is not let John bingo every single turn the rest of the game. So not opening up more lines up top seems like a fine idea.
Yeah, I was so to Scrabble's point in the chat, I was also gonna probe about the importance of spread for the rating as well, which is an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, so we use what's called a Glico 2 rating system for Coco ratings. It's pretty similar to what you see online if you're on a platform like Wiggles, for example. Your rating changes each game based on the expectation, not just of whether you win or lose the game, but how many points you're supposed to win or lose by. So if you're playing somebody that you're rated, a couple hundred points higher than, the rating system says, okay, you're expected to win by 50 or 60 points, for example. And if you win by less than that or you lose, your rating might go down. Or if you win by more than that, it might go up. So it's a rating system that takes into account spread with each game, as well as the strength of your opponent relative to yourself. So every spread point matters for that reason as well. Good call out there.
Yeah, I do think it's one of those things where however you do your system, as long as it's understood and known, you really do see all those same players rise to the top. It's not, it's pretty consistent. However you split the hairs on how you want to
Yeah.
award the credit, there does seem to be a pretty strong skew between the best players and players that happen to win their games by a lot of points and lose their games by not that many points.
Absolutely. I think that's true in a lot of sports, not just Scrabble. That point differential is a pretty good indicator of skill level. Certainly if you're a baseball fan or a basketball fan, you've seen that borne out year after year.
Yeah, with enough games, it does seem to be highly predictive of a team's actual skill level. So, John, I'm sure based on the way his rack was arranged, he was hoping somehow for an E to come out so he could play the beautiful foredoom. Hopefully this game does not foredoom John's tournament with so many games left. It surely doesn't. One loss is hardly a speed bump this early. But yeah, what's he gonna do? He's getting set to play food and maybe ARD.
I guess so.
It's not a ton. Yep, there it comes. And this does not give David too much to work with either.
And it empties the bag. So we are, I think, thankfully for John's perspective anyway, at the end of this one. I think, when you take a pretty brutal round one loss like this, you just want to put it in the rearview mirror and move forward. So John emptying the bag, and we'll now have the end game here between David and John here, with David up by over 100.
And I'm just looking around. My gut instinct is to try to, maybe I would play ovally through the V of Vax, but first I would need to look at John's rack and see, does that give him anything good that he wouldn't normally have? Not really sure. I just, I feel like my instinct is that that's a pretty good play, but it might give good stuff back. So we'll just look around. Both players with kind of weird combinations of vowels. Yeah, it looks like ovally is about as good as David can do here, which I think is nice because it just gives him 3 flexible tiles to play next turn and finish the game off.
Yeah, doesn't look like John's going to have anything too scary in response to really any play David makes. It's a pretty mediocre endgame rack from John's end. After ovally, I think his best play looks like it's going to be Rami, Rami, which he just set up by playing food.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Playing parallel there. Yeah, I think that's good also just because it blocks the best place to play tin alongside the F. How do you feel about calculating endgames in completely lost or completely won positions, Evans? Are you a try hard like me that just can't seem to let go the idea of playing the optimal end game, or do you save that brain power?
I think it depends on the circumstances. I mean, given that this is round one of a 30-game tournament, we're playing 8 games a day, 8 for the first 3 days. There's definitely the risk that you're going to get mentally fatigued over the course of the weekend. And in an end game like this, where you're probably only talking about, if you make a reasonable play, it's probably not going to be any more than like a 4-point mistake or something. I would probably be less of a perfectionist in this situation. That's just me. And then, of course, I would, miss the playoffs by 4 spread points.
That would be a shame. Traumatic, even.
almost as traumatic as your laptop dying on you with an hour to go before the tournament begins. Still
That
trying to
is,
fix this thing.
yeah, does that fall under Murphy's Law, or is there a special law for technology going berserk and crashing right when you need it most?
Maybe there's like a special like Murphy's Law corollary that refers to your laptop you need for streaming Scrabble
Okay,
tournaments. I don't know.
here's the play. This does seem like the best way to dump a lot of junk at once and leave David with 3 decent letters left. As Scrabble noted in chat, you could, if you're John, you can play Morula through the L of
Ah, very
Overlay,
nice.
which that seems like a pretty crazy, obscure word. As you noted, Evans, it's not the best play because it would give back mint to the triple for a lot more points than David could get otherwise.
Yeah, so if John were to play Rami, then David would only score 10 points with faint INT from the FA there being the best play. Whereas if he got Moyle, he would get 22, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a shame that end games are only rarely the decisive part of the game in Scrabble because they are so interesting. It feels like not a large percentage of the time do they actually decide the winner or loser of the game, barring some kind of massive blunder. Sometimes you see a huge mistake, but sometimes there's only one very precise sequence that delivers a victory in a game. Doesn't happen all that often, but it's a lot of fun when it does.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about endgames is that every game has one. And, whether you're, in a tie game or whether you're down by 100 or up by 100, whatever it is, there is always that mental challenge of how to calculate the best possible sequence. And really, every player, it's up to their own discretion, how much they want to, like you're saying, be a perfectionist and try to get every single one exactly right, or whether they want to just kind of say, close enough and move on with their lives. And, every player has that freedom to make that choice for themselves. Seems like in this game anyway, both players are taking it pretty seriously, with David making his best play of Overlay here and John taking his time to find his best option. I'm sure he's seen Morula and knows that giving back mint is not the best play. And I'm sure he's looking for alternatives at this point. Just what else can he do?
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier, right? What is the fear that I would have in either player's situation here? I would hate to miss out on the finals by a handful of spread points. And you don't know, you can't rule out this early. That's not going to happen, right? It's possible that later on you'll have a better idea that either you have so much spread or so little that you can conserve some brain power, but the players don't know that yet. They have to do their best to come up with their best solution, because you just don't know how important those spread points will be. And very impressive. Look at that. That's not an obvious play, but it is John's best play. I'm impressed.
Very nice. Yeah, that's a great play. There were a lot of candidate moves that were pretty similar, but Rami is the best one, scoring 23, which is the maximum score, and not giving back anything too dangerous from David's end. And yeah, it gets pretty straightforward from here as David can go out, and his best play is extending Fa to faint for 10 points.
And he spotted that very fast too.
There you go. All right, so with David going out for 10 plus 6 from John's rack, the final score is going to be in round one, David Whitley 480, John O'Loughlin 336. So a very strong start for Mr. Whitley here in round number one, winning this one by 144, if I could do math in my head. Yes, okay. So a nice start for David, and we are now one game into the North American College Championship, 23 rounds to go in the preliminary rounds. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have more action coming up very soon with a wonderful matchup between Dave Wiegand and Scott Jackson coming up. Two best friends reunited at last in round two. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. We'll be having that matchup coming up very soon. Yeah, so we're going to have 3 more games before the lunch break this morning, and then we're going to have 4 more after lunch with a new cast of streamers rotating in. So right now you've got me, Evans Clinchy, and my partner here, Will Anderson, broadcasting the first 4 games this morning. And 1 down, 3 to go here in our session as David Whitley takes care of business in round 1 against John O'Laughlin. So I think we're going to cut to a quick break, and then we're going to come back with round 2 in a few minutes. So we will see you very soon, and we're looking forward to Dr. Bing versus Scott Jackson in round 2 coming up soon. We'll see you soon.